Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of emotional resonance, looking at songs that don't just have an emotional component, but where that emotion is such a strong element of the song that it's kind of impossible not to feel it. And so, of course, we have Chat Pile this week. Geez, what am I in store for here? On the one hand, I am aware of the subject matter on this one. I also know what Chat Pile typically does, and they have been effective at making me feel things in the past. I think this is going to be a pretty heavy one given the topic, which is about the loss of a child, and Chat Pile does heavy things very well, so all right. I'm not ready for this, but let's dive into it. So it feels more natural with these constant eighth notes. With the previous section, I thought we were alternating between 8 and 7 because that last note of the end of the phrase just kind of lingers there.
Close my eyes and you're still with me. In the trees with the locusts buzzing, but I never can keep my eyes closed long enough. I know amount of dreaming can bring you back, so I can't remember if I told you I loved you that morning. On the wake you called for your mother, and my heart broke into a million pieces. A kind of darkness you just never get used to. So I stare at the light, biding my time.
So much tension.
Waiting to die. Waiting to die. Waiting to die.
The lack of energy in the vocals too.
Waiting to die. Wonder if all this pain I carry is strong enough to lift your body from the water and make you be alive again. I think stupid things like this all the time, but I would rather trade my life for yours if only the water could bargain. If only they had been watching. I can't turn back, only face forward, but I would rather trade my life for yours if only the water could bargain.
The increasing intensity that's going to push us into the chorus here. Oh, not quite yet.
Is always calling, but I can't control the rage inside of me. I spill the blood till the world is done with me. I want you to know right now that I loved you. When you left, it almost killed your mother, but something inside me propels me forward. A kind of rage you just never get used to.
There's the chorus.
So I stare at the lake, biding my time, waiting to die, waiting to die, waiting to die, waiting to die, waiting to die. And everything that I touch is dead. Everything that I wanted is gone. Nothing before me now but pain. Nothing before me but pain. And your voice, of course. Someday I'll reach you. In my dreams I can reach you. So I stare at the lake, biding my time, waiting to die, waiting to die, waiting to die, waiting to die, waiting to die.
Yeah, musically, there's not a lot going on here. It's varying levels of tension and dissonance that allows the song to have a sort of push and pull without ever having an opposing idea. It's not brightness and darkness where we can fluctuate between the two and they create tension that snaps back to the other side. It's just less tension and more tension, enough to create a division for a pendulum to swing between two sides. It isn't totally static, but boy, dude, this song does not let up either. And most of the guitar work is texture. It's either just doing dissonant tones or it's just gnarly compression and weight. The bass adds into that. The drums, they just kind of follow along with the guitar rhythm. There really isn't a lot of complexity to the composition side on this track. Even the vocals very rarely dip into anything melodic. There were those two sentences, I think, in the second verse that tried to pitch match the guitars. But other than that, it's just spoken word or screaming. So I think primarily for this atmosphere, for this analysis, I want to focus on the techniques going on in the song that craft the atmosphere and what gives this its emotional weight outside really of the baseline compositional stuff, the rhythm, the melody, kind of lack of melody, and the harmony. Those things, there's not really a lot going on in there, but there are performative elements I think that really sell this song. The first being the sound of these instruments. The notes that they're playing, I honestly think don't really matter that much, as long as it is a lower set of notes and that the notes combined create some level of dissonance and negative harmony. It's going to work. It's going to achieve the effect that they want. But it's the size of the instruments that I find fluctuates the most on this. We have thinner verses. They gain in weight and size over the course of the verse, especially the second verse. This one had a bit of a roller coaster ride, but it always grows into the chorus, which is this massive, meaty, weighty sounds. Just feels like this anvil dropping on you over and over. It's this that I think really sells the atmosphere of this track, the noise of it all, the tension and dissonance. Yes, they give it this feeling that it's not good. This isn't positive harmony. It's not beautiful or joyful. That is from note choice. But it's the size of all of this, the movement from less to more, never really dipping into something more positive, just kind of giving you various layers of negativity and various layers of weight is what allows this song to be as impactful as it is at specific points, and what allows it to feel as aggressive and antagonistic as it does consistently. There is no reprieve in this song. You do not get a chance to get away from this feeling. You are just allowed to have a little alleviation of the weight, of the tension, of the stress. You don't get to get rid of it entirely, though. It's always there. Just some moments are heavier than others. I think they do a great job of using this to tell a story, but also while keeping a musical pace to this and a flow and fluidity. It is a song that never feels stagnant despite hyper-focusing on one idea of crushing despair. And they do it without memorable riffs. It's not like I can say, the verse was more memorable or less memorable than the chorus or something like that. It's all sort of just noise. I can't really hum a guitar riff. The rhythm of this, I can probably sing back to you, but that's about it. Everything else is texture. It's a feeling more so than anything hummable. And yet, despite not really changing the emotion, not really changing the texture, not really changing the atmosphere of this song, they created 5 minutes that never feels stagnant. And a lot of that, I think, is about the layering shift, the weight shift, the tone shift that we get across this track. There's another side to this that I think really nails this aesthetic, and it's the vocals. Now, I have limited exposure to Chat Pile, partially by choice. The handful of songs I've heard from them don't present a sound I want to willingly engage with. It is heavy art consistently, whether it is thematically heavy or just sonically heavy. It's not something that I find I enjoy listening to. Now, maybe there's some Chat Pile songs, isolated tracks out there that might work for me really well. But I'm not ready to go through more music like this to find those. If anyone has recommendations, yeah, let me know for sure. But I would have to be in a really stable state of mind to enjoy a whole album of something like this and have it not affect me in any way. Listening to 30 minutes of this is going to bring me down. And, if I had no responsibilities, I mean, maybe, engage with negativity like this from time to time. Maybe if life were a little bit more brighter and I needed some darkness in my life, maybe. But, I can't and don't want to do that right now. But despite my limited time with them, I have heard a variety of vocal styles. I have heard different types of harshes from the vocalist. I have heard this spoken word stuff before too, but something about the way it's delivered here. Maybe it's because I knew of the lyrical themes, but the delivery is tired, and not physically tired, but mental and emotional exhaustion. Words are just slurring together. I don't know if this dude's voice can get any lower. It feels as if it is the minimal amount of energy needed to say these words with any sort of enunciation, to make them understandable at all. And finally, getting above that low threshold and saying, well, that's it. I'm not putting any more energy into this. This is my story. This is all I can afford to give telling this story. And that tells so much, or it informs so much of the themes of this song. I mean, this is about a parent who lost their kid. And as the chorus states, and we're going to touch on this in a moment, both in my third point I want to touch on and in the lyrics, they just want to die. Or maybe they're just, well, he says he's waiting to die. Whether that implies he wants to or just is waiting for it to happen, not accelerating it, but not finding any point in living anymore. It just doesn't have the energy to do anything. It's completely wiped out, completely defeated. The lyrics tell that story really well, but the vocal delivery adds to it. It is so effective that I honestly wonder if this person hasn't lost a kid. I mean, if not, there is a lot of empathy going on here, a lot of feeling those feelings. And honestly, on a level, acting. Regardless, the end result is artistic perfection. The delivery of these lines sells this character's mental state. And when paired with the music, creates an extremely affecting song. But the last thing I want to touch on is lyrical based, but we're not actually going to talk about the lyrics yet. It's repetition of the lyrics. Verse 2 in particular was twice as long, I think, as verse 1. When I was expecting it to move back into the chorus, it didn't. We had another 2 stanzas out of it or so. This just runs together. Part of the vocal delivery, like I said, just barely meeting the threshold of intelligible speech. But it's just this constant stream of consciousness, almost, until you hit the chorus. The chorus is one phrase. Well, it's 2 sentences to get there, but then one phrase repeated over and over and over. Even at the end of the song, once the harsh vocals came in, a couple of isolated lines and then a repeated phrase over and over and over. And I really love this detail of creating a song that focuses primarily on linear lyrical delivery and then hyper focusing and locking into these single phrases. It's the spiral of someone in this type of emotional pain. It is these thoughts that you continue to return to. You may think about so many other things, but for some reason they always point back to this one idea. And then you get locked on it, you get fixated on it. It's all you can think about for a while. To work that concept into the music, of making it sound like you're going to continue with this linear lyrical delivery and then get locked on these phrases, these ideas, these sentences. That feels very human, very natural for what they're doing. They basically, through these 3 concepts here, I think have crafted not just a song, which I think it follows that rather well. We have a verse, chorus structure. We have instruments and words over it. It is definitely, at the end of the day, music. And if you don't listen to the lyrics at all, you like noisy, metallic stuff, I think this song works really well at just being good music. But they've done a fantastic job at turning this into art, of finding ways to incorporate this experience into the creation of the song, into the way that it reads and feels and is performed. It isn't just a song about losing a child. It feels like this singer, this narrator, just happens to be saying his thoughts with music around them. And that to me is a very big distinction. And I think it's what elevates this track so much, is that they didn't just write some riffs and put some lyrics to it and call it a day. They put thought into this. How can we make this feel like someone is singing about losing their child rather than just singing about losing a child? And that informs so many decisions in it, and they all come together to elevate this track into something incredibly powerful. At the end of the day, as much as Chat Pile isn't for me, I have found that consistently they are storytellers. They use music as a medium, and they do write good songs. But in the tracks I've been forced to listen to, in a sense, storytelling, I think, is a word I would describe every track that I've heard from them. Let's hit some lyrics. I'm of 2 minds here. If I take this pretty much just at the first and second verse and the choruses, this is a phenomenal story of someone who lost their child and has nothing else to live for and finds that They have even so much as not that they don't have anything to live for, but that life around them fades. At one point saying, everything that I touch is dead. There is nothing before me now but pain. Saying that there's nothing to live for. There's not even a point in trying to find new life. Everything in his vicinity now dies. Maybe not literally, but at least to him it feels like they do, physically, emotionally. Maybe it's just them feeding off of his energy, reflecting back what he puts out. He talks about having a rage inside and just kind of getting used to that darkness. He says, verse 1, close my eyes and you're still with me in the trees. I feel locusts buzzing, but I can never keep my eyes closed long enough, and no amount of dreaming can bring you back. I can't remember if I told you I loved you that morning out on the lake, and you called for your mother, and my heart broke into a million pieces of kind of darkness you just never get used to. Yeah, powerful words. The post-chorus is about wishing for anything else. He says, I wish that this pain I carry would be strong enough to lift you from the water and make you alive again. He says, I think stupid things like this all the time, but I would gladly trade my life for yours if only the water could bargain. The chorus is the first instance of repetition we hear. It says, so I stare at the lake, biding my time, waiting to die. And waiting to die gets repeated over and over. It is a part of this linear thought process, but it is the point of fixation. All of this is a phenomenal song at embodying somebody who's going through such strong and immense emotional pain. But there's this weird part in the bridge that stood out to me. I couldn't quite place what it was supposed to mean. It says, cutting the meat, forest of meat, spill their blood, spilling their blood, and resurrect my son. Then resurrect my son is repeated multiple times. And here I really felt that this was part of the bargaining element, a hyperfixation on, man, if only I had done this, or maybe if, magic were real, or, whatever stupid things. Like he says, I come to these stupid ideas all the time. I know they're not real. It's fantasy, but what if, right? And this resurrect my son part really stood out to me because he's screaming it at this point. This is an emotional peak to the song. I didn't catch the words prior to this, but I caught resurrect my son. And I was like, dang, this is a guy who would try out black magic in hopes that he could have another second with his child. But I kept coming back to this spilling their blood, the forest of meat. What does this mean? It stands out as a very strange 4 lines in a song that I feel is rather cohesive, and it just doesn't click. And here's where I am of 2 minds. The second opinion takes in. It is confirmed that this song is written about Pamela Voorhees, mother of Jason Voorhees from the Friday the 13th films. Now, while Jason is infinitely more infamous, Pamela is actually the murderer in the first movie. Her son, Jason, dies at Lake Crystal? Camp Crystal, whatever it's called. He drowns in the lake while the counselors are off, doing drugs and having sex or whatever, and that's why she murdered them. And then ever since Friday the 13th Part 2, that's where Jason takes over and becomes the icon of the series, continuing the murder of teens who do drugs and drink and have sex at Camp Crystal, or whatever it's called. But it's the mother who does the killing in the first one for revenge since her son died. And that's what the story is told. And that's why we have that line about, well, I did skip a couple of lines. Verse 3 says, I can't control the rage inside of me, spill the blood till the world is done with me. I did talk about the rage, and I think that's pretty normal. Anger is a part of the grieving process, but I didn't talk specifically about spilling the blood. Now, granted, that I think is really the only line in the opening verses and choruses that stands out to me in that way. But the bridge about cutting the meat and spilling their blood, that lines up with Pamela Voorhees. And of course, the name of the song is Pamela. Now, I honestly was like, is it though? Is this really what the song is about? And apparently the chat pile has a shirt for this song, and it just kind of, yes, definitely. This is about Friday the 13th. And from that perspective, I just don't think it hits as hard. I really think this is more effective without that context. Now, as a pop culture song, I do think it's pretty good. It definitely sits up there with some of Ice Nine Kills songs that does a great job of re-envisioning a popular horror film and telling a story through the eyes of a character from it. Does a great job of embodying the emotions of that character and puts it into the music, and has lyrics that aren't just directly ripped out of the film, and really embodies the character in a way that shows that they did a good job understanding this character. Granted, Pamela Voorhees isn't a very deep character, but still, I think the song's effective at that. But as far as emotional resonance, I feel infinitely more disconnected to this song now that I know what their intentions were with it. And I don't know if I would have that same feeling towards the end of the song, which is the emotional peak to me. It's when the screaming starts happening, but it's also when the lyrics really take that turn into saying, this is about a murderer, someone who murders after their son passes away. And it's what kind of elevates it and removes it from being a grounded song into something a bit larger than life. And it takes me out there. When the song really, I think, hits its stride emotionally is when lyrically I become distant. And I think that's a bit of a shame. Not to, I mean, it doesn't diminish anything about the song, I think, on a objective level, but subjectively, I mean, like, it's just kind of, but these are just my thoughts, right? What are yours? What do you think about Chat Pile's Pamela? Did your opinion change after we went over the lyrics? Or did they stay the same? You think the song's effective regardless of who we're talking about? Maybe it's just me who feels this way about it. Let me know. You know, if you have anything you'd like to add to this conversation, or anything that I misspoke on that needs corrected, your opinion, perspective, any of this, put all that stuff down into the comments. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.